Welcome all you average gamers to another Most Average review. Whether you are new to Final Fantasy or a longtime fan, this game is awe-inspiring. The world, the combat, the story, all outstanding showcases of what a AAA game can be. Let's get into it, shall we?
In the distant past, our planet was home to a people we call the Ancients. Many millennia before we discovered Mako, these precursors were already pioneering its use. Somehow they learned of the great reservoir of energy pulsing beneath their feet. And once they had, the Ancients developed the means to harness this bountiful energy and bend it to their will. The fruits of their labors have survived to this very day in the form of certain kinds of materia. Their scripture too has endured. We who are born of the planet, with her we speak, her flesh we shape. Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
Final Fantasy VII is the beloved game in the series, released way back in 1997 on the PlayStation 1. The game was originally remastered in April 2020 for the PS4 and June 2021 for the PS5. I was lucky to play the game on the PS5 at 60 FPS. I played this game as a longtime fan, but a new player. What I mean by that is I never really had the chance to play the Final Fantasy games growing up. I watched many of my friends playing the games and dabbled from time to time, but never beat one. As to the story to Final Fantasy VII, I am brand new, and I had to Google Cloud's story and the story leading up to Final Fantasy VII. So this will be a review from a noob to the series, basically. With all that being said, this game was fantastic. I don't really have nostalgia for the game, so I can't speak on whether or not the devs' liberties on the story is good or bad. All I can speak on is whether or not I enjoyed the game. And let me tell you, I fucking loved this game. There are definitely moments that could have been trimmed down or cut altogether, but all in all, I enjoyed myself. To read that the original game's Midgar section was only about 4 to 5 hours long, and this game is set entirely in Midgar, is absolutely insane. After playing this game, I can see why the original game was split into multiple games. This time around, they were really able to go into depth with these characters and be able to fall in love with all of them. This game, all in all, should take you about 40 hours or so to complete everything there is to do in the game. Endgame excluded, of course. There is hard mode and replay chapter function unlocked after you beat the game the first time. That's pretty much it for the endgame, so I'm not going to include that in the total playtime. If you were to just beeline the main story, I would say it takes you about 25 hours or so to beat the game. I really can't say enough on how pretty this game is. It's fucking crazy. The way Square Enix recreated Midgar in a full 3D world is truly breathtaking. Even if you're not into gaming or visuals or animation, you can't help but stop and admire the scenery. The wall market, in particular, is a jaw-dropping area with all the neon lights and the NPCs walking around. I spent nearly 30 minutes just walking around and admiring said scenery.
Your capital of Midgar that's got everything for everybody. Couple, huh? It's all good. Play together, do your own thing, earn a little scratch on the side even. Whatever you're into, we got you. Got a special one-time limited offer.
No, thank you. Come on, Cloud. Let's go.
Oh, wow. Would you look at you guys? Oh, the sight.
One more round! One more round!
Look, there it is. The materia pods. The whole season we came all this way.
Take a look-see. This one's got bites.
Within me lies the power to bestow joy in the underground coliseum.
It's no secret.
How'd you like a piping hot bun filled with the finest, most delicious and delectable honey you've ever tasted?
So sweet, so rich.
The game looks stunning on the PS4, but on the PS5 at 60 FPS, the game is just a spectacle. The lighting and particle effects make every movement and every scene truly next-gen. Final Fantasy has always had the best in the industry pre-rendered cutscenes, and for the most part, Final Fantasy VII has real-time rendered scenes, but the handful of pre-renders they do have are the best I think I've ever seen in a game. The character models and animations are almost perfect. That being said, you can clearly tell the NPCs outside the main cast are rendered or modeled at a much lower level. They just don't quite have the polish the main gang have. If you are super interested in the tech and the visuals as a whole, I recommend watching Digital Foundry's video on the PS4 PS5 comparison. Link will be in the description below. Now mind you, even in 4K, YouTube's compression won't do this game justice. You need to really play the game and see it on a big 4K screen or monitor to truly appreciate it. With that being said, here's a dope montage of some sick stills from my playthrough.
What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules?
The mixed turn-based real-time action combat that they created for Final Fantasy VII Remake is some of my favorite combat of all time. They were able to combine the amazing turn-based mechanics of Final Fantasy XIII and the real-time action hack and slash of Final Fantasy XV perfectly, in my opinion. The game isn't particularly hard outside of a handful of the boss fights, but the depth to the combat is phenomenal. You do have the option to play the game in classic mode, which will switch the combat to be closer to the classic turn-based you may be used to. Like I said earlier, being new to the series and not playing a lot of turn-based games, I played the entire game in the new combat mode designed for Final Fantasy VII. I really enjoyed the hack and slash with Cloud's big-ass sword, but being able to switch members on the fly and utilizing everybody's ability and combination is satisfying every time. Like Barrett's badass cannon arm or Aether's spells, every member of the team has their own quick attack and a heavy attack. With Cloud, the heavy attack switches his stance and makes all of his attacks heavy. With Tifa, you have normal attacks and punches, and the heavy attack is a whirling uppercut, and so on with each member of the team. Each member also has a limit break, which is sort of like a super attack. This is tied to a gauge that fills over time based on stats, move, damage taken, many other factors. You can also give each character materia, which can alter each member drastically. The materia can add different magic abilities, spells, boost the stats, debuffs, and much, much more. Each member of the team has an array of weapons you can pick up along the way or buy from vendors. Each weapon comes with its own special attacks, and once you become 100% proficient with that weapon, you gain a bonus when using that attack. You also gain the ability to use that attack with any weapon you choose to use going forward. Each weapon also has a set of skills or attributes that can be unlocked with AP points gained from killing enemies and using the skills. The materia has a similar system. The more you use them or have them equipped while defeating enemies, they also level up and become stronger. The number of different builds you can create with the different party members is extremely vast. I can easily see the combat and leveling system being unanimously praised by the community.
It's on you.
Payback. Phase 2 of the combat trial. You've seen but a fraction of this machine's true capabilities.
It's on you.
I got this.
Yes, the monster ready to fire. Now show me how fast you can run.
I'm not going out like this.
Damn, that thing's powerful.
That was too close.
We need to come up with a plan.
Story, on the other hand, I can see being very divisive amongst the community. I personally really liked it. For those that haven't played the game before, here's the main synopsis of the story. Midgar is a city built on a giant corporation called Shinra Electric Company. They power the entire city using a natural resource called Mako that is derived from the planet itself. You play as Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier, first class, well, sorta, but more on that later. and you are partnered with a group called Avalanche. They are basically an eco-terrorist group trying to take down Shinra by blowing up the Mako reactors to try and save the planet from destruction. The Mako reactors are what convert the Mako into usable energy for the city. Throughout the game, Cloud helps Avalanche try and take down Shinra. There's also a subplot for Cloud himself and Sephiroth. Sephiroth is... Man, that name is so hard to say. Sephiroth is also an ex-soldier who went rogue after finding out the true origin of how soldiers are created. But I won't get into that too much, as that on its own could be its very own video. Getting back to Cloud, he basically has the memories of 3 different people in his head, and that's the main reason why he believes he is an ex-soldier. Without spoilers, both plots come together at the end of this game, which, based on the pacing of this game, I would imagine is going to be a trilogy. The one thing I really enjoyed about this game is how the devs really portray the damage and destruction caused by Avalanche. Yes, Avalanche are the good guys, but there is still going to be fallout when you're dealing with a war on any level. The game doesn't shy away at all, especially if you listen to the background NPCs, conversations, and actual destruction rendered in the world. At first, the story didn't really grab me, not the way the combat and the visuals did, but by the last 5 chapters, I couldn't put the controller down till I finished it. Looking back on the game now, I have completed it, and I really enjoy the story being told as a whole. I appreciate the boring parts in the beginning more now because it brought more life and backstory to the characters and the story as a whole. For people who played the original, they may disagree. I will say that at times I think the pacing is a little off. I feel this game could have trimmed around 10 hours or so off, and it would have been perfect. There are 5 chapters. We are free to just free roam and do side missions. There are 18 chapters in total. I completed every side mission the game has to offer, and I gotta say, they are some of the most boring I've ever done outside of a very few. Most consist of little more than looking for the lost kids around town or the lost cats around town, but there are a few that are okay, and some even have cool rewards that you can use for different builds in-game. From items to materia to even a couple of weapons. This game is really something. The one thing that always kept me from really diving into a Final Fantasy game was the turn-based combat. I don't know why, but it's just never really been for me. But with the way Square Enix revolutionized the combat, I was able to finally enjoy the wonderful stories being told in this universe. The game recently got a DLC alongside its PS5 update called Intermission, the Yuffie DLC. I don't know who this character is exactly, but I've read around the interwebs that she's a beloved character. I will have the review out for the DLC in one of my next few videos. It's again pretty easy to tell that I recommend this game highly to new and returning fans. The story is subjective, but the gameplay is phenomenal, and with that alone I would recommend this game. I cannot wait for the next game in the series. The game ends on a cliffhanger and had me thirsty for more. This review, as always, is brought to you by Glitch Energy. I know there are a lot of energy supplements out there, and I've tried most of them, and honestly, Glitch is slightly better than all of them. The company is family owned and operated and locally sourced from the US of A. The drink tastes amazing, has all of your daily vitamins in it, and is sugar-free. One side note, unlike G Fuel, it doesn't make you poop. They also have other supplements and merch as well. Thanks for tuning in to another Most Average reviews by an average gamer for average gamers. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and go make some average plays, my friends. I will catch you on the next one.